So at long last, the first episode of Season 3 has finally arrived, but it may not be what people expected it to be. A lot of people may have thought that Episode 1 of Season 3 of My Hero Academia was gonna be something crazy, just going straight into the story, but it turns out that's not really what happened. Instead, we got something that we got in Season 2 as well, which was a recap episode at the very beginning to make sure that, people who may not remember what's going on get a better grasp of what this is a follow-up of. And me personally, I really do not mind this, and I'm a manga reader, I would have preferred going straight into the story, not gonna lie, I think most people would, but at the same time I really don't have a problem with a recap being episode 1, because that means we're not really gonna get a recap at the middle of it, right? We're not gonna really get a recap at like episode 13 or so, where it's just going to be recapping what's been going on the past 13 episodes or so, because that's what most anime tend to do. They have a recap in the middle of a season, but I feel like having a recap at the beginning for the previous season is actually more effective, because most people are gonna remember what's been going on for the past 13 episodes, as opposed to the people who are gonna remember what's been going on the season that was taking place 1 year ago. You know what I'm saying? So if you're one of those people that actually complain about this being a recap episode and with some filler in it, because it's not entirely recap, they're using some filler to kinda make the recap seem logical in a sense, as you recap episode might tend to do sometimes. Me personally, I'm just really happy that My Hero Academia is actually getting an anime, because when you look at some of the other mangas that are getting published, along with My Hero Academia, like The Promised Neverland, Dr. Stone, yada yada yada, at least My Hero Academia is getting an anime, right? Whereas those series, they don't. So I don't really get why people are so upset that the first episode is going to be a recap. Just wait 1 week and you'll get into the actual story. Just be patient, people, please. Jesus fucking Christ. Anyway, the manner in which this episode wanted to kinda use the filler and recap was obviously through the means of a pool episode. Not really a beach episode. I mean, it's kind of like a beach episode would be, but you apply it to a swimming pool instead. We have all of the people in the class pretty much at the scene. We have the boys trying to compete in a swimming contest and whatnot. We have the girls who's just supporting them. They're not really swimming. I mean, they're just having a good time, whereas the boys are being really competitive. I don't really have a problem with it. I mean, they're all in character and whatnot. We have some really interesting scenes with Mineta. Mineta's like the pervert. He's just gonna want the tits, but he's really disappointed because the girls aren't really wearing bikinis and stuff. But, it's the kind of things you would be expecting. It's a school pool. They're probably not even allowed to be using bikinis in a swimming pool that's in the school grounds, because if I'm not mistaken, that is how it works in Japan. I mean, obviously in most parts of the world this is not the case, but we have to understand that this is, at the end of the day, in Japan, and Japan has some standards, and this isn't exactly, a fictional world. It is in fact on Earth. It's just a fictional version of Earth, but they're still in Japan, and of course the Japanese laws probably still apply to some extent, at least. Maybe not all of them, because it's in the future and it's kind of warped and stuff like that. Some laws are probably going to be different, but most of it are going to be quite the same. And yeah, I don't really know why I went too in depth with that, but there you go. Before watching this episode, I did know it was like fillery and recap, but I thought we were going to do something with it that would actually make the upcoming movie of My Hero Academia make sense, seeing as that movie is going to take place between season 2 and season 3. However, they didn't. So I'm a bit disappointed in that sense, because from what I've heard, at least, it's supposed to be canon to some extent. Not entirely sure if it's going to be entirely canon, but having the movie fit more properly into the story would have been a great way to start off the anime, especially if it's going to be taking place around that time. But because it didn't, it was a slight disappointment in that regard, but at the same time, it's not really that big of a deal, because I don't think the movie's going to cover anything that's really super important, and the reason why I don't think that is because they really couldn't force a manga reader to watch the movie in order for the story to make sense, and that's why I think the movie is gonna have some interesting things that are probably gonna be approved by Horikoshi and potentially even written by him to some degree, but I don't think it's gonna be anything exceptional. But we are gonna be seeing Prime All Might in it, as we've seen in the trailer, but it may not be anything that's really crucial to the plot of the manga or the anime. Well, I think I'm gonna end the video here, because I honestly don't have much else to say about this episode. It was obviously recap and filler, and because of that there isn't much to talk about, because at the end of the day, they're just talking about stuff that's already happened, in season 1 and season 2. And I don't just want to fish for words, I just don't want to make this video like 10 minutes. He has to reach that like length. I do want, to talk about stuff that's actually relevant to what's been going on in this episode. And if I did that, I don't actually think I could keep it to those standards. So yeah, let me know what you think down below in the comments. Did you like the whole recap filler beginning of the season? Or maybe you fucking hated it, Just let me know what your thoughts are about this episode. And as always, be sure to Detroit smash that like button if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you haven't already. This has been Chaotic Plus, and remember everyone, Toga is waifu, Toga is laifu.